Tonight on Talking Points, midterm elections are on the horizon. We'll have an in-depth preview on the races to watch.
The Iran nuclear deal faces heavy opposition from the White House, but international leaders are doing their best to keep it alive. We'll have more on that later.
In the Senate confirmed Mike Pompeo as the new Secretary of State today, officially replacing Rex Tillerson. We'll have more on the divide behind the confirmation later. In a busy day of cabinet confirmations, one of President Trump's initial picks will not be taking a seat within the president's inner circle. Good evening, I'm Mike Riccardi.
And I'm Josh Carney. The nominee for Veteran Affairs Secretary Ronnie Jackson will have his resignation withdrawn by the White House.
The White House physician was the chosen nominee to succeed recently fired VA Secretary David Shulkin. However, lawmakers on Capitol Hill went public with accusations from current and former colleagues. Jackson denied the charges, calling them false and fabricated. President Trump lamented the decision and said that senators who went public with the accusations, including John Tester of Montana, would face problems in their own states.
Jackson was accused of overprescribing prescription drugs such as Percocet, throwing medical staff into a panic. He was also accused of prescribing medication for his own use and keeping a hostile work environment. Jackson will retain his current role as White House physician.
In the next few months, Senate and House primaries will continue to take place across the country leading up to November's midterm elections. Democrats are looking to take back the House and Senate in order to combat President Trump's agenda, while Republicans look to hold their majority in both chambers. Over the summer, all of us here at Talking Points will be following the campaigns closely. Here to preview what to expect in the midterms are Talking Points political analysts Gilat, Melamed and Dan Prager. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, let's start with the Senate seats. There's more Democratic seats up for grabs than the Republicans, but where exactly can the Senate Democrats make some gains?
Right. Well, one of the ones that I'm looking at as a must-win is in Nevada. This is the only state where there's a Republican senator up for re-election that Hillary Clinton actually won. So Dean Heller's seat is up. And you have the Congresswoman there, Jackie Rosen, running against him. And another thing, interesting about the state, the other senator from the state is a Democrat. So obviously, it's a state that has a current Democratic senator, so I think that's one that if the Democrats want to win the Senate, they have to flip.
There are two Republican-controlled states where the Democrats can pick up. That's Nevada and Arizona. But I mean, even if they break even on this and don't lose any seats, that's a huge win for Democrats. If you take a look at the map, it is an incredibly just harsh year for Democrats. You have Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, West Virginia, Indiana, all of these states that are hardcore Republican, that Trump won, and that they could easily lose a bunch of ground. And luckily enough, it seems like there is this blue wave kind of coming in that will kind of give them an advantage. But honestly, even if they don't win any seats, if they don't lose any seats, that's a win.
And when you talk about those Republican states that have deep roots towards conservatism, are there any seats that the Republicans could pick up to kind of strengthen that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a bunch, and you don't know exactly where they are right now. I mean, Republicans are fighting in Tennessee. They're really fighting in West Virginia. I think that's the one where they're really looking to pick up because West Virginia was the most red state in the last election. I would say those two are probably the ones they really want.
Right, and going off of West Virginia, I mean, the GOP primary there is very interesting. You have Blankenship, a very flawed candidate, formerly in jail, one of the oil barons there. So I think that if he wins the nomination, I think that the seat is going to stay with the Democrats. I don't think he's going to win the general election, similar to what we saw with the flawed candidate Roy Moore down in Alabama. But I think that if one of the other GOP candidates wins that primary, Manchin seat is the most vulnerable Democratic seat for the Senate.
And Dan, what about the House? Any big seats to watch for? Can the Democrats flip it quickly?
Absolutely. First, quick correction. Tennessee is obviously Republican-controlled right now. My bad on that. But there are a lot of seats going on right now in the House. Every seat, of course, up for grabs in 2018. We have our own CitrusTV analysis of these House seats. Right now, there are about 27 Republican-controlled seats that are from toss-up to likely Democrat. All of those could technically swing blue. If it is truly a blue wave year, Democrats need to win pretty much all of them. They're going to lose one with the Pennsylvania redistricting. And out of those 27, they need to win at least 25 of them to get past that majority.
Right, and 25 seats, it's an interesting number because there are 25 GOP seats up in Clinton territory. One of them is right here, you know, in the 24th district where John Katz goes up for re-election. But there's a lot of competitive seats in New York State, 5 actually, across the entire state. And what's interesting about it is that 3 of those districts, they voted for, Trump in 2016, but they voted for Obama twice. So those are 3 New York districts that could definitely easily flip and go to the Democrats.
Gilat and Dan, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have to leave it there.
President Trump is hearing arguments from European leaders this week about the fate of the Iran nuclear deal. French President Emmanuel Macron took part in activities in Washington over the past few days, including talking to Congress about why the U.S. should stay in the Iran deal. Talking Points analyst Jack Watson is here to discuss what the president and European leaders are saying. Jack?
Thanks, Mike and Josh. We are just a few weeks ahead of a crucial deadline set by President Trump that could determine the fate of the Iran nuclear deal, which the president calls a, quote, bad deal with, quote, decayed foundations. Now, the original deal attempts to stop Iran's capabilities for nuclear weapons production until at least 2025, which is a major point of criticism for the president, who believes that the deal shouldn't expire so early. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron visited the White House this week in an effort to convince President Trump to build on the deal rather than scrapping it and making a new one. German Chancellor Angela Merkel will attempt to convince the president tomorrow. From the perspective of Macron, Merkel, and other world leaders, the deal puts Iran out of producing nuclear weapons, and they say Tehran will continue to abide by the rules of the deal. President Trump, however, believes the sanctions and restrictions on uranium production aren't strict enough, and that the country's missile program also needs to be targeted, and that there needs to be more inspections. Trump has criticized the deal in the past and has advocated creating a new deal with tougher regulations on Iran. By May 12th, the president will have to decide whether to pull out of the deal or to stay in.
European leaders voiced their opinions on the Iran nuclear deal. Mike Pompeo is confirmed as Secretary of State. Those stories and more when we return.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with
S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees?
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Welcome back. Here to continue the conversation is Jack Watson and Talking Points analyst Thomas St. Hilaire. Both of you, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, Thomas, I'll direct this first question to you. Why exactly is President Trump so against the Iran nuclear deal? Why are the European leaders lobbying so hard for it?
Well, I'll start with Europe. I mean, Europe right now sees this. These are restraints that are already in place. Going with the current deal at the moment provides a certain sense of stability for a lot of these leaders. If you're President Trump right now, I mean, he's vocalized over and over again that he believes that we're really not doing enough, that we need to toughen the restraints. We saw Emmanuel Macron came and met with President Trump this past week to discuss what are some possible restraints that we can add on to the Iran nuclear deal, and that we'll see how that folds out.
And when you look at that tense rhetoric coming from the Trump administration, Jack, how are the Iranians reacting?
Well, Iran is certainly not pleased with the instability in the rhetoric of the United States. They have, foreign leaders from Iran have vocally criticize the United States for this. They say that the United States is getting too much and not giving enough, and that in a deal you need to give some and take some, and that the president wants to take too much from Iran. Now, what the deal does right now is it already restricts their capabilities for nuclear weapons production by restricting the amount of the amount that they can enrich uranium, and what the deal does not contain, which is what the president has really been talking about a lot, is the fact that it doesn't really address Iran's missile program. They can still produce missiles under this deal, which is something that the president and several conservatives are very wary about.
Well, to be clear, this is also just not about these two countries. I mean, we're seeing the global ramifications that it's having. You know, we're seeing Europe obviously getting involved. Even countries like North Korea. How will this affect talks upcoming with North Korea? Well, you know, this perhaps paint President Trump in a way that, you know, maybe he's not as diplomatic. I mean, this unfolds in a way where it's going to have an impact, not just between these two countries, but on Europe, on Asia, on countries around the globe.
And how much sway do we think the European leaders can have, or is this decision really ultimately up to President Trump?
Mike, something very important to pay attention to when it comes to this specific negotiation is the relationship between Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and President Donald Trump. They both rose to political power. These are Macron's words. They both rose to political power in unconventional ways. Even though they don't always politically align with France being a little more left-wing than the United States generally in these general elections to which they were both elected to power, they can both sort of come to common ground on certain things. And I think that Macron is going to try to use that to his advantage in the next coming days. And I think Merkel is going to try to do that, call upon that personal relationship as well.
Well, I think the other thing...
We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. Thomas and Jack, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Rex Tillerson's replacement for Secretary of State, former CIA Director Mike Pompeo, was narrowly confirmed in the Senate today. Pompeo faced intense scrutiny from both parties as he is prepared to step into a position that will be incredibly important with big decisions in Syria and North Korea looming large. Here to talk to us about his confirmation process and what we might expect from Secretary Pompeo is Talking Points analyst Michael Furnari. Wow. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, we saw tensions flaring today during this confirmation process. What exactly did it look like? Can you walk us through what happened?
Mike Pompeo today was confirmed 57-42 to the Senate. Interestingly enough, so 6 Democrats voted for him and 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats, and that's half as many who voted for him last year for CIA director. So that kind of suggests that there's maybe a bit of a partisan tinge to the Mike Pompeo conversation, and I think over the last few weeks we saw that with some of the questioning he received, where he wasn't even really being asked about foreign policy. He was being asked about things like gay marriage by people like Cory Booker. And so I think that we're seeing that maybe it is kind of becoming more about the Trump culture war than it is about his views.
And when you look at that between the culture war and between the foreign policy position, Trump's foreign policy objectives often aren't as clear. And when you look at Mike Pompeo's record in that space, how do you think Pompeo fits into Trump's overall objectives?
I think Pompeo fits in pretty neatly. So Pompeo is a little more hawkish on Iran. He's been very, very critical of the Iran deal. And I think President Trump's policy, if you're going to try to categorize it, it's kind of a very kind of grounded, aggressive, unpredictable style of policy that kind of rejects some of the softer diplomacy of the Obama years. And I think when you look at some of the hawkish positions on North Korea and Iran, I think Pompeo fits into that pretty well.
And how much are we expecting Mike Pompeo to be involved with the developments going on in North Korea?
Now, Mike Pompeo will be heavily involved. So actually, the government released very recently a photo of Pompeo meeting with Kim Jong-un 1 month ago. And he's actually got trips planned for the next week and a half. So he's going to Jerusalem, Syria, and he's actually on a plane to Brussels tonight. So will probably be much more involved diplomatically than Rex Tillerson was over the last year.
And we will have to leave it there. After the break, we'll look at Scott Pruitt's congressional hearing and break down the contents of the new DNC lawsuit. Stay tuned.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate and it's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
The Democratic National Committee filed a lawsuit against the Russian government, the Trump campaign, and WikiLeaks for allegedly participating in hacking its email servers during the 2016 presidential election. Here to discuss the details of this case is Talking Points analyst Payton May. Payton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So when we look at this case, why is this being filed now?
Well, the chairman of the DNC, Tom Perez, has kind of said that elections are coming up. Obviously, they've dealt with a huge scandal before, which has really harmed them. So I think they're trying to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. They're really taking precautions in case, you know, something like this impacted the campaign so much. I think along with that, too, this is a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And they're not getting as many donations as they hope to get. The Republicans are leading in donations. So I think they're hoping that because of this lawsuit, they'll get a little more money that they need right now.
And since WikiLeaks is involved in this lawsuit, is there sort of any threat, do we think, to press freedom? Is that part of this?
Well, WikiLeaks obviously is involved because they published the hacked material, but this goes along with, like you said, so many freedom of the press issues. The press has always been involved with lawsuits like this, like the Pentagon Papers, but not even the Pentagon Papers, but also during this election, the New York Times released Trump's tax returns, which is actually illegal because you can't release tax returns unless you have the permission of the person that they're coming from. And then along with that, the Washington Post also released during the campaign confidential memos from Trump's campaign. So there's been a lot with the press coming out like that, but WikiLeaks is confident that they have their constitutional right, freedom of the press, so they think they'll be fine with this.
So a lot has obviously happened. There are a lot of actors in this case, and there's a lot of potential outcomes. So what do you think could be some of the major outcomes to come from this?
Well, because of the Mueller investigation going on at the same time, I think that they're trying to piggyback off of a lot of the information that's going along with that. But obviously there's a lot of difficulties suing a foreign country, in Russia in this case. But a lot of foreign countries have immunities to civil suits in the U.S., so we'll see how that works with that, if they're even able to do that. Trump isn't being sued. It's really just his campaign, his son, and then some of his friends that have been going along with the campaign. So there's nothing directly going on with him, but obviously there's a lot of mirror images to the Watergate scandal. A lot of people have been talking about that, if maybe this is going to cause something like that. So we'll see what the fate of that will be.
Now, one could make the argument back in 2016, the DNC was extremely fractured. Do you think this is signifying a more united front?
Well, I think they are trying to unite their front because along with that, when the emails were released, a lot of Sanders fans were upset about it because they thought the DNC was going to take, Hillary's side in this and for her to be the Democratic nominee. So I think they're trying to unite the entire DNC and all Democrats to try to figure out what happened with this and get down to the end.
Certainly something that we're going to be paying attention to here and looking into the summer towards. Thank you for covering.
Thank you.
The Environmental Protection Agency head Scott Pruitt spoke before 2 congressional hearings today. This follows calls from members of both sides of the aisle for Pruitt to step down following alleged ethical misconduct. Pruitt defended himself today, saying here to discuss these changes and what it means for the Trump administration is Talking Points analyst Conor Wight. Conor, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So when we look at today's discussions, what are some of the key points coming out of it?
Well, some of the key points, or at least the things that were causing problems for Pruitt, are a lot of ethical issues surrounding spending. Since he first came in, he spent over $3 million in security alone, and a lot of these were for some personal trips like to Disneyland or to sporting events. He also spent over $150,000 on first-class flights, and pretty significantly, he also spent a lot of time in an apartment just a few blocks away from the Capitol building for just $50 a night, and that apartment was in connection to a lobbying group whose project was passed under the EPA, and we know $50 a night that close to the Capitol, that's not the going rate.
Now, Conor, one could say today was make it or break it for Scott Pruitt, so not to be cliche here, but did he make it or did he break it?
Well, honestly, it's hard to say. Today went more or less as expected. Democrats grilled him hard, whereas Republicans were a little bit more hospitable towards him. He passed the buck a lot. He said that certain things were on others. For instance, the first-class flights, he said that that was his security team telling him to do that, that helped keep him safer if he was up at the front of the plane. But there was one significant thing that people were not expecting. He actually went back on one of his talking points when he was speaking to Fox News a few weeks ago. He said that he wasn't aware of some significant raises that were given to 2 Oklahoma aides, but today he said that those were actually given, those were delegated in his authority.
And in terms of those views and how it kind of fits into the broader discussion about the Trump administration, how does the president and the administration fare in this dilemma?
Well, publicly, Trump has given Pruitt his support. He mainly likes him for the fact that he has been very anti-Obama environmental regulations. He's rolled back a few of those since he's come into office, but there are a few reports saying that internally Trump is frustrated with the situation.
And do we think there's any risk of Scott Pruitt being fired?
Once again, hard to say. Like I said, it's hard to know truly where Trump stands on the issue. At least in the public light, he likes him. But there are others in the administration that are not a fan. Chief of Staff John Kelly urged Trump to fire him last month. And this is yet another headache for the Trump administration that they, quite frankly, can't afford right now.
And that headache is coming from both sides, which makes it a little bit more exasperated. The fact that he's fighting some party infighting on top of general opposition. Connor, thank you for covering.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll have a discussion on the impact of fake news and the responses we've seen from society. Stay tuned.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Got a quarter?
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Fake news has been a part of the national conversation for months now, but this week a video took it one step further. BuzzFeed created a video showing Barack Obama, but his voice was replaced by the comedian Jordan Peele. The lips of the former president synced perfectly with Peele's voice, making it difficult to notice the video was fake. What does this mean for the future of fake news? Here to break it down are Talking Points analysts Shruti Marathe and Joshua Feinblatt. Thank you both for being here.
Of course.
Now, when we take a look at this video, Josh, how did it originate?
So BuzzFeed partnered with Jordan Peele and his production company to make this video. They planned it. They used After Effects and then this new app called Fake App, and which has been making the rounds. And basically what it does is it does sort of a map of your face, and it's able to replace your mouth and what you're saying with that person. So whatever you say, they're able to put it together. It honestly only took about 4 days overall of rendering once they filmed it to make it look really good. So it's out there for the public. It's not just BuzzFeed. They used technology that a lot of us have.
And Shruti, in terms of this technology, what is the state of it that it can be produced?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just getting better and better. Josh said that it only took them 4 days to render the video, and the technology for it is developing further. They're basically using machine learning to match voices up with lip movements, so they can doctor a video and make it look like somebody is talking and saying words that they didn't actually say.
And what do we think this means for the future of fake news?
So, you know, this technology was available, you know, for high production movies. You know, Paul Walker in, you know, Fast and Furious, he was there, he wasn't actually there for all the filming. But now it's in the hands of the people, and there's no accountability as of now. I mean, you know, the government is behind on this technology. This all started actually on porn online. So you were able to take pictures and videos of celebrities, and they made their way into videos. And so that's where it sort of
And when
started.
you look at the context of that technology, in terms of it affecting the political arena, what is the future of that?
Well, you know, researchers are saying that it's harder to detect that a video is fake than it is to make your own fake video. So that means, you know, the consumers are probably going to have to be more skeptical of what they're seeing because it's going to be so easy to make this kind of fake news.
Yeah, and as they said in the BuzzFeed video, Jordan Peele said it, we have to rely on trusted news sources, just like us here at CitrusTV, you know, to put out this information from these different politicians and everything like that.
And a lot of times I'll see when I'm going through Facebook is a lot of people will be photoshopping tweets, mainly of President Trump saying some ridiculous things. And I'm quite surprised by the amount of people that actually believe it. So like we've been talking about, you know, part of it is on the consumers to believe it, but how much is it on sort of social media to be monitoring this sort of thing?
So when this originally happened on Pornhub.com, they said they were going to take it all down, but there were still articles that were saying that there's still so much left of it, just so it's hard to regulate. So it might just be a lot of, you know, personal regulation.
Yeah, it's so hard to detect if a video is doctored or not, to the point where you really have to go frame by frame. So social media can try and develop algorithms to, you know, catch these videos and catch these instances of fake news, and they should be, but that's not to say that it's not going to be a challenge.
All right, well, Shruti and Josh, it's your last time on Talking Points. Thanks so much for being with us these last couple of years. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you guys for everything you've done.
Thank you guys. After the break, Mike and I will preview one story we've been looking ahead to for a long time. Don't go away.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Tonight marks our final show as anchors for Talking Points and CitrusTV. Over the last 4 years, Josh and I have fell in love with this show and have made friends that will last a lifetime.
We have so many people to thank along the way, like the anchors before us who were trailblazers in their roles. We cannot thank Alex Amico, Max Darrow, or Nick Cardona enough for their insight and advice.
We would also be remiss if we didn't thank our wonderful executive producer, Jishnu Nair, and the many others before him. Talking Points would be nowhere near where it is today without Tom Austin, Claire Moran, and Anna Giles.
And finally, this show would cease to function if it were not for the hard work on a weekly basis from our APs, Aaron, Sean, and Medora, and the dedicated cast and crew from starting out as a correspondent 4 years ago to anchoring the show together for over a year now. We have so much to be thankful for.
We have created memories we will never forget. Talking Points will always be like family. We are looking ahead to the greatness the show will continue to accomplish as we leave so many great people behind.
That's all the time we have tonight for Talking Points. We are off for the summer, but make sure to tune in next year when Gilat Melamed and Elijah Shama sit behind this desk.
Thank you for watching with us these last 4 years. For Talking Points, I'm Mike Riccardi.
And I'm Josh Carney. For one final time, good night, Syracuse.